Hello everyone, my name is AJ and I don't have a good intro yet. I've been putting off today's video for far too long, but also just long enough for my art skills to improve enough to make it. When I first started redesigning the characters of Hazbin Hotel, I never thought this was going to turn into a series. I thought I was just going to do Adam and Eve and then dip, but then I ended up having a lot of fun and I wanted to try my hand at the other characters too. My second video in the series was about Carmilla and Vaggie. I hadn't quite figured out my process yet, so I went into that video without doing any research or doing any planning or anything really. I hadn't needed to research anything about Adam and Eve since I was so familiar with the original source material. I thought I would have just as easy of a time with the other characters, and boy was I wrong! I do not like these designs anymore, especially Carmilla's. Vaggie is fine, but they're both kind of ugly a little bit. I also wanted to make a few refinements to their lore and story arcs since I have a better idea of where my story is going. Let's start with Vaggie since she'll be easier. Though I'm not super happy with the art anymore, I still like all the ideas I had in my first attempt. Vaggie is a fallen angel, and in my AU, fallen angels retain shards of their old wings. That's what those big black spikes are. After roughing in a sketch of a walking pose, I started sketching out all the details. I have discovered that it's much easier to design characters in a pose that fits their personality than what I used to do. I used to just turn on the symmetry tool and draw them in a neutral pose like you would do for a character turnaround. Not that that's a bad way to design characters. I've just found that for me, my brain works better when a character is posed in a way that fits their personality. I decided to get rid of the parallel storytelling thing that was present between Vaggie and Carmilla in the original show, if you can call it present. I'm sure there's some way to make those two characters parallel each other in a way that works, but it doesn't work for what I'm trying to go for. So I brought back Vaggie's original body type. I think it's called a pear shape, but I could be totally wrong. I brought back the eye patch, but this time gave it some X-shaped straps that are keeping it on. I kept the horns, beak, and eye all exactly the same too. I decided to shave off all of her hair except for the stuff that goes over her missing eye. I've never super vibed with Vaggie having long hair, especially after the Exorcist reveal where we see her short hair. I wanted to take the short hair all the way and shave it off. It's a much cleaner silhouette than the waist-length hair that I gave her before. I kept the uniform exactly the same, no changes necessary there. Also, before any of you comments this, the arms are a little too long on purpose. Heaven lore dump time. In this universe, when you die, your earthly body gets left behind. Only the creator himself can make the bodies of creatures here on earth. No one can replicate his work perfectly. The bodies of sinners are created by Lucifer, and the bodies of angels are created by archangels. No matter how hard they try, the seraphim physically cannot replicate human bodies. If the body they create is too close to what someone looked like when they were alive, the body will explode. In order to prevent this from happening, the seraphim purposely add things like horns, wings, tails, and fur. That way they can focus on making a vessel as accurate as possible without accidentally blowing it up and getting blood everywhere. The angelic creature that created Vaggie made her arms a little longer than human arms to maximize her wingspan so it would be easier for her to fly. Returning to Vaggie's design, I thought it would be cute if she had a casual outfit for when she wasn't working at the hotel. Vaggie died most recently, making her the youngest of the adults in the cast, and I wanted her outfit to reflect that, so I took some inspiration from my own wardrobe. I wanted to go halfway between casual goth and casual, so I gave her some striped leggings, a spiked choker, and an oversized t-shirt with an X on it. I was going to put wings on it, but that was way too obvious, and also it looked like the Deltarune a little bit. Not that there's anything wrong with the Deltarune, I love Deltarune, but I didn't want to do that for this. The X will be easier to animate anyway, even though I'm not animating this. Last thing I designed for her was her angelic form, mostly because I wanted to double check to make sure that I didn't make the wing shards too big and impractical. Spoilers, they are impractical, but they aren't too big. I changed all of her black features to a dark gray. It makes her look a lot lighter overall. Her sin is wrath, which is orange, so I thought I'd make her angelic form the exact opposite color, but I decided against it. I know that there are 7 virtues in heaven, though I don't know what they are yet. I'm pretty certain, though, that there is a direct opposite virtue for every sin, which would be the opposite color of said sin. There is no way that Vaggie would have the virtue of whatever the opposite of wrath is, so I made her purple instead. I think the light purple looks super nice with the gray anyway. I do have an updated backstory for her now. In my original video, I forgot to come up with anything for when she was alive. Whoopsies, I forgot that angels have to die in order to get into heaven. Oops. So here's the lore. In my church, women are allowed to go on missions when they're 19, which last for 18 months. Our missionaries are tasked with serving people and spreading the word to as many people as will hear it. Vaggie was on a mission like this. She was going to door with her companion when they encountered a very evil man. Her companion got away, Vaggie didn't. Fast forward a few years, Vaggie decided to finish her mission by serving with the exorcists. The exorcists spend the majority of their time taking care of demons on Earth, but once a year they go down to hell to help the sinners move on by turning them into pillars of salt. Normally, the exorcists either do it so fast that the sinner doesn't even realize it's been touched, or they try to comfort the sinner and make their last moments peaceful. Vaggie was a natural at it, until she encountered the man that killed her. Not just her, but many other women of faith. Exorcists always leave their bodies behind in the heaven embassy, so they are completely invulnerable on extermination day. They end sinners just by touching them. Even a light graze will turn a sinner to salt, quickly and painlessly. Vaggie made the very purposeful decision to summon her body so she can make her murderer's death as slow and as painful as possible. As you might imagine, that breaks kind of a lot of rules. While Vaggie was on her way back up into the sky, her wings caught ablaze and she fell. Moving on to Carmilla. My first take on Carmilla was so heinously ugly. It's so bad. The ideas were there, but oh, they were so poorly executed. I wanted to make her look like one of those porcelain ballerina figures that are on music boxes sometimes, but my execution was incredibly poor. She looks like a Five Nights at Freddy's animatronic. So for my second try, I pivoted to a ball joint doll. I found this picture online of a ball joint doll that I thought was super stinking pretty. Someone in the comment section of that video said that Carmilla was supposed to be inspired by the ballet Swan Lake. Personally, I don't get that at all from her design. I don't think there's a single part of her that conveys swan except for maybe the mask-like patterning around her eyes. But I didn't really have anything else to work with, so I decided to use that as inspiration anyway. While sketching her, I was thinking about how I might make her if I was creating her as a doll. The majority of her clothing is painted onto her body, with only a few bits here and there being sculpted. The feathers around her chest and forearms are carved out of wood. They are not real feathers, they are stiff. Her hands are also stiff. The only soft, flexible parts of her are the back skirt type thing that is made out of fabric, and her hair, which is made out of doll hair. I haven't changed my mind about Carmilla's hands for my first video. I still don't think that huge, thick forearms fits for this particular character. Instead, I gave her doll hands, the kind where they're stuck in the same position and some of the fingers are fused together. Since her hands are nearly useless, this necessitates the fighting style she uses in the show. In the show, her main weapon was a pair of angelic steel ballet shoes. With her hands being as big as they are, you would think that she would mainly use her arms to fight, but it's the reverse. Now I think she has a legitimate reason to use such a strange method of fighting. I also think this will assist with giving her a reason to train Vaggie. The wing shards on Vaggie's arms are not sharp or stiff, they are flexible. This makes them really difficult to fight with. You can't use them as weapons and they kind of get in the way a little bit. Also, my version of Vaggie doesn't have any real combat skills, she's just a girl. Most of the exorcists are the same way. So having Carmilla train Vaggie how to use her legs as weapons will be vital not just for the battle, but also for living in hell on a day-to-day basis. I switched Carmilla's dumb hair horn things out for just regular ears. Though Carmilla is heavily inspired by Swan Lake, she is not actually a swan. I want only angels and fallen angels to be the only real birds. Carmilla's true species is a cat. In Swan Lake, there are two swans. There's the white swan and the black swan, and I could go into detail about that, but I've already sat down to record and I forgot to write it into the script. But basically, there's a white swan that is good and a black swan that is bad. I decided to combine them into one person. Backstory time. Just like with Vaggie, I forgot to write a backstory for her on my first try. Not this time. This time I have an actual idea. When Carmilla was alive, she was married to a wealthy man who owned a prominent weapons factory. When he died, she took over the business. This was still a very sexist time, so she had a male face of the company, but she was the person who was actually in charge of everything. The time in which Carmilla was alive was a very unsteady time for Spain. Tensions were rising between Republicans and nationalists. Carmilla grew more and more paranoid as things got more and more violent. In 1936, the tensions broke out into an all-out civil war. During the earliest months of the war, Carmilla's factory started being raided for weapons. Though she tried her absolute hardest to ignore it, the fighting soon came to her front door. Rather than let her daughters ever face the mercy of the soldiers, Carmilla buried all 3 of them alive, including her newborn. Carmilla was later beheaded by her own workers. Carmilla very deservedly went to hell. She was an evil person who abused her workers on a widespread scale. The working conditions within her factories were terrible, the hours were long and the pay was terrible. Sure, it was her husband who started things off that way, but Carmilla purposely perpetuated it. Her 2 oldest daughters joined her in hell for evil, abusive beliefs of their own. The baby went straight up to heaven, as all children do. Carmilla does love her daughters very much, but in a very selfish sort of way. So, loving your family doesn't automatically make you a good person. It's not enough to care for the people in your immediate circle. That's not going to get you into heaven. I will have to make the 2 older daughters a video of their own. Since they are such important characters for Carmilla's motivation, I want to flesh them out a bit. Their names are never even said within the show. How am I supposed to understand how much Carmilla cares about her daughters if we don't know anything about them? If they were younger, then I could get it, but these are adult or older teen girls. I'm going to need you to do a little bit more than show them on screen a couple times for me to care. When I write it, I want you to understand why she cares so much, outside of just, common sense, You have to do a little bit more when you're writing a show. And now we've reached the point of her backstory that I did already have written, but I do want to make a few changes to it to make it better. In my first shot at a backstory, I came up with this idea that Carmilla invented a sort of gas that could force an angel back into its body. I want to change this a little bit. Let's get into that. When Carmilla arrived in hell, she met up with her 2 oldest daughters and found her husband, but the baby is in heaven. Carmilla wanted her entire family to be together, so she made it her mission to find a way to capture an angel so she can use them as a hostage to exchange for her baby. She, her husband, and her eldest daughter worked together to create a device that combined magic and science to trap an angel spirit. They were able to successfully capture an angel with it, but they didn't know that at the time an angel can summon their body. Human angels have the ability to summon their bodies and small objects to themselves, but they can't send things in the opposite direction. The exorcist they captured summoned their body and they were able to escape. Carmilla's husband died trying to keep them contained. After that loss, Carmilla gave up. Even after her eldest daughter came to her with a prototype that would destroy the angel spirit when they were captured, Carmilla would have none of it. All she wants to do now is lie low and make certain her remaining family stays safe. That's all I have for today. Look at this fan art. It's cool, isn't it? The artist will be linked in the description. If you want to see your fan art at the end of one of my videos, send it to me on Discord. If you'd like to support me, check out my Patreon. I post there all the time. I also take commissions. Here are my prices. If you want one of those, you can order them on Ko-fi, Instagram, or Discord. Thank you again so much for watching, and of course a special thank you to all my patrons, JRDS, Mercer Scott Holt, J Draws, and my Ko-fi member, Silent Savvy. Bye!